Coming up, Urban Native Era is using its clothing designs to bring visibility to Indigenous people. Now their products are being sold in a major retailer in the U.S. Plus, a look at tribal nations in Utah and how they are working with state officials. I am Aaliyah Chavez. Join us for those interviews plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
The Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication at Arizona State University is honored to be a supporter of Indian Country Today. ASU offers the only online undergraduate digital media literacy degree, teaching students how to recognize and combat inaccuracies on all platforms. They are using cutting-edge tools and tactics to separate fact from fiction in a digital world overloaded with misinformation. Learn more at cronkite.asu.edu.
This is the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez.
Amarawa Hopa. Thank you for joining us. In Arizona, a Navajo citizen is being appointed to serve in the state's legislative body. Teresa Hatathli was appointed as an Arizona state senator by the Coconino County Board of Supervisors last week. Jamasita Peshlakai previously held the seat, but resigned to take a position in the U.S. Department of Interior. Hatathli is the logistics coordinator for the Navajo and Hopi Families COVID-19 Relief Fund. She previously represented the Western Navajo Agency as a board of regent for Diné College. By state election procedures, she will be formally sworn into office on Monday. More news from the Grand Canyon State. The annual Indian Nations and Tribes Legislative Day will be returning in person. The Governor's Office on Tribal Relations will be hosting the 27th annual event at the Arizona State Capitol. A joint protocol session hosted by the House of Representatives will kick off the day's events on January 12th. There will also be a luncheon and a workshop for Native youth called Native Youth Know that will include guests like NASA astronaut John Harrington. Tribal leaders from the state will have floor privileges to join the representatives during the session. In Bolivia, vaccination requirements are forcing the country's second-in-command to get his COVID vaccine. Lines wrapped around clinics as the nation's vaccination certificate requirements went into effect last week. Vice President David Choquehuanca is an Aymara philosopher who follows traditional Andean medicine and was hesitant to get the jab. But now even he is vaccinated against COVID-19. Health Minister Jason Auza gave the BP his first dose of the Sinopharm vaccine.
This is the week we've had the most cases in the history of COVID in Bolivia. It's also the week we've had the least mortality thanks to the vaccine.
With the vice president vaccinated, Bolivian citizens are starting to get on board.
The vaccine is really important. Today is my second dose. And it's important that we have it to protect ourselves against this disease, which is punishing our Bolivian people.
In the 21 months of the pandemic, the country has reported more than 600,000 infections with 19,000 deaths. An Indigenous North Carolina representative is starting the new year off by running for national office. Lumbee citizen Charles Graham is running for Congress with a reminder of how his tribe stood up to racism. Caitlin Onawa Boycell has his story and more behind his viral campaign video.
Down a windy paved road lies rubbish in the grass and birds singing the day away. This might look like an average piece of pavement, but this road to town and its trees have history. In 1958 in North Carolina, the Battle of Hayes Pond brought together Lumbee people and people of color to stand up against the Ku Klux Klan.
That night, they rode in with their cars, their crosses, and a single light bulb hooked to a car battery.
50 Klansmen. Not a bad turnout on a cold night. Problem is, they were surrounded by 400 Lumbees.
Graham's campaign video highlighted this battle, and the story went viral on social media, having almost 6 million views, according to his campaign managers. Graham says this event has had a huge impact on the Lumbee community.
But I can tell you, I think it saved lives going into the future after 1958. It saved property destruction. It's protected our culture. So it's more than just one night. It's an event that transcended generations after that.
Now Graham wants to stand up for what's right and make a change in
Okay, you're from
Congress,
Elrod?
just like the Lumbee did that night.
And I'll be honest with you, that's one of the reasons I've decided to run for Congress, is to bring my voice to a bigger stage, Washington, D.C., nation's capital, and use my voice as a uniter and not a divider.
Graham says running for office is his duty as a Native American. He also tells me that he's considered one of the only Indigenous elected officials east of the Mississippi.
And I understand we have 5 members of Congress who are from Indigenous communities, tribal members, and I would be glad to join them and being a voice for our tribes across this country.
Graham also tells me his platform issues involve affordable health care, tribal issues, and education.
Out here that can bother
In
you.
North Carolina, Caitlin Ottawa,
mind.
Boyce Cell, ICT Newscast.
And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. I am Aaliyah Chavez. Coming up, we're taking a look at how Utah's tribal nations are working with their state's governor. But first, Urban Native Era is adding its name to a list of Native-owned brands that can be found in a major retailer. In 2012, entrepreneur Joey Montoya created the brand Urban Native Era. Using platforms like Instagram and TikTok, it has quickly become a popular and recognizable brand. The company is best known for its hats, t-shirts, socks, and stickers that include the phrase, "You are on native land." Last week, major retailer REI announced it will sell Urban Native Era's products in 40 stores across the country. We're joined today by Urban Native Era's CEO and founder to share more. Hi, Joey.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. Thank you for being here. So tell us, how did Urban Native Era start for you?
Urban Native Era started while I was in college, freshman at San Jose State University. And I felt that we weren't being seen in schools, in textbooks, and overall in news media. And I wanted to really amplify some of the Indigenous issues that were happening at the time. And I started Urban Native Era just to do that. So I started with posting on social media, and then it slowly developed into a clothing brand.
So you started this in college, and I understand that there was some aspect of activism and advocacy in starting this company.
Yes, and that's always going to be our base and our foundation as we grow as a brand. It's always amplifying Indigenous issues and Indigenous voices. But yeah, we started about amplifying the Black Hills are not for sale, as well as Oak Flat, Mauna Kea, missing and murdered Indigenous women back in 2014. So all these things really are really like the core of the brand, is amplifying these Indigenous issues.
And when you started the brand, did you ever think that you would be here today? Tell us about that journey.
No, actually, I was thinking about this recently. Like, I had kind of no idea or no specific idea of like, oh, I want to be in a big retail store. I think I had the vision ahead, and I knew it was going to take me certain places or take the brand certain places. But yeah, I never really imagined a big retail store. So it's kind of nice to be in this moment and for REI to reach out.
Yeah. Something that's always struck me about Native Era's marketing is the fact that you use social media so much to your advantage. I know that you really, really push your products on social media, and you were kind of doing that. It seemed like before everyone else was. I think with the pandemic, we're seeing things like TikTok and Instagram really use social media to market their brands, but you were doing that long before that.
Yeah, it definitely was. And it's kind of crazy because it's cool to see, like, back in the day it was like OXDX and then Bethlehem Yellowtail and all these like indigenous brands. So we're starting to see more indigenous brands pop up as well in this, through social media, and people want to create and share with the world we have.
Yeah. I mentioned earlier that one of your most popular phrases is "you are on native land." How did you develop that?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, it's not an unknown phrase in the indigenous community, native community. But the idea came when I was actually in the Pacific Northwest, and I was riding with my friend Matika Wilbur in her car, and we were in this small town of um, near Swinomish, and she started yelling out, "You're on Indian land!" and really loud. And I remember I was holding her like little dog in my hand, and it really stuck with me. I went back to San Francisco, and I like remembered that. And as I navigated through being in San Francisco after college, I started to realize like people just don't know that. They don't um, know that indigenous people exist, or they um, yeah, don't know we're still here. And I wanted to figure out a way how to do that, and how to share that with a simple phrase, um, but through clothing and through design. So we created that in 2018, and originally it was paired with highlighting the Bay Area and the indigenous people from there, the Ohlone people. But then slowly it just expanded, and people really took on to it. And yeah, recently we were able to get our products into like reservation dogs and all that. So it's pretty neat how far that phrase has come, and how many people like understand it and get it and want to share that message.
And I understand that a lot of people buy the products "you are on native land" who are not just native people, but it seems like people from all different walks of life are purchasing products that look like this.
Yeah, and that's in intention of it too. Like, we of course we want native people to wear and rock our brand, but we also want native non-native folks to wear it. And uh, we think this phrase that non-native folks can wear this phrase, and it's important for non-native folks to push in these different ways. So, sometimes it's uncomfortable, and sometimes it's like, um, not easy, but it's really important for people all over the world to really push this, especially as we're making momentum into. I think, and it's one of the reasons why I named the brand Urban Native Era, into this like whole era of visibility for Indigenous people.
Sure. Well, the other striking part is that part of the products that REI did pick up is the hats and the other apparel that say "you are on native land." Now that means that more people just walking into their local REI can buy these products. Was that, shocking to you that they picked up that product specifically?
No, not shocking at all. I think it's one of our popular items. It's really cool to see the feedback though from Native folks and non-Native folks, and we're hearing like where people are able to, who don't normally have a place where they can ship items to. They can go to their REI and pick it up, and I think it's really great that it's that specific product as well, because it's such a strong, really strong statement. And I think it's like really huge for a big brand, a big retail store like REI, to be able to carry that and share that message along with it.
How did that collaboration start with REI?
They reached out in September. I just came back from New York Fashion Week, and I just saw like REI in the subject line, and they wanted to have a conversation. And I was curious on like what it was about. I figured it was going to lead towards retail, having our products in their stores. But when you're starting or have a business, you really can't get excited too much about anything until it's actually happening. So I think that's even what happened with me when we finally launched this this past week was like I had to see it in the stores to actually like be able to be in that to feel it and be in that moment. But yeah, I started back in September, and my team has been like incredible, really to push it and make it into the retail store, because there's a huge process that goes along with it, and it's not an easy thing. It's a new system. We had to get like these new UPC codes that you see in every single product out there. So my team, I actually want to shout out to them because they were really big on all this. I just had to focus in on the marketing and how we're gonna really share this with the world. So yeah, I want to say a huge thank you to the whole team.
I want to actually circle back to that because you said earlier that you started this brand in college, and over the weekend, I know that you visited REI. What was that like for you to walk in and see your products on a shelf like that?
It was in a way like a surreal moment, and like I said, it took me a little bit to process, but just to see it in stores and just see all the support um, I got from all my friends and family and the community in general, going to these stores. I think that really, um, yeah, it's a huge moment. It's been 9 years since I started the brand, so it's a lot to start a brand. So the seeing this is like a huge, it's a huge monumental moment for myself and overall the brand. So it's been incredible. I'm yeah, excited for what else 2022 has in store, and our 10 years is coming up next year. So we're planning some really big things with it as well.
You said earlier that a hat of yours made it onto season one of Reservation Dogs. Can we expect to see more products in season two?
I hope so. I'm really pushing for it, and I'm hoping that there's some more aspects of the brand in Reservation Dogs.
Sure. Well, I actually want to know what's next for Urban Native Era. You said next year is your 10-year anniversary, but if you could give us, any previews of what to expect.
Yeah, it's our 10 years, so definitely expect a lot more detailed apparel. Some of the things that we focused on last year was this new collection called the Sovereign Collection, and it really focused on the details, the garments, where it's made, and all these things, and even the eco-friendly aspect to it. So we're going to be focusing that on our 10-year, and then big collaborations, and maybe even a retail store. So
Well, we'll look forward to that. And for you, Joey, on a personal level, as an entrepreneur, what's next for you?
I think right now focusing in on the 10-year, but I've always been a person that really wants to jump into all these other things. And as a even creative person, I feel like we can maneuver in all these different aspects. So I really want to start diving in more into some other entrepreneurial things that I will not mention just yet, but you'll definitely expect something really soon on that side of things.
Sure. Well, Joey Montoya, thank you so much.
Yep, thank you. Bye.
And we'll be right back. The state of Utah is home to 8 federally recognized tribal nations, and there are more than 41,000 Native people living in the state. Alastair Bitsoi is a reporter at the Salt Lake Tribune. He recently took a deep dive into tribal relations in the state. He interviewed tribal leaders about what grade they would give Utah's Governor Spencer Cox, who is in his first year of office. And Alastair joins us now to share more. Welcome to the ICT Newscast, Alastair.
Hello, Yate. Nice to be here.
So tell us, what grade did tribal leaders give the Utah governor?
In my reporting with the Salt Lake Tribune, we did a story on the performance or the evaluation of Governor Spencer Cox over the last year of his administration, and the tribes there, essentially most of the 8 tribes in Utah, gave him a B average, in part because of his performance with COVID, which is most of the pandemic, obviously across America and the world, but in tribal communities, there was a lot of good praise for the governor as far as his response with the different tribes in Utah. But the B became a little like an average, in part because of the pushback of his leadership, the state leadership in Utah, trying to redo the efforts of tribes advocating for Bears Ears National Monument. And so there's a latest threat to the Bears Ears narrative, with the Utah state leadership trying to challenge the Biden administration and the advocacy of Secretary Deb Haaland to restore Bears Ears for Indigenous peoples in the Four Corners region.
When talking about COVID-19, what did tribal leaders specifically have to say that was positive about his response?
I know one of the leaders from the Northwest Band, Shoshone, did indicate that the governor was very responsive in a timely manner with how the vaccine rollout was happening in that community. And I found out through the reporting that the Northwest Band of Shoshone people are federally recognized, and so they're unique in their status, in part because of they're one of the few tribes, or maybe not, like one of the only tribes in America that has no like federal land status. And so they're able to coordinate like in a different capacity that most other federal tribes are not like able to coordinate, I guess, without no land base, so to speak. Obviously, they do have ancestral lands in northern Utah and southern Idaho and southern Wyoming. But I thought I was unique in the story that I was able to report on was that designation as a federal tribe, but they didn't have a land base, but they were able to still coordinate and be in the community that they're from and in a border town, I guess, so to speak, and still get the services as they would as a state voter or a state constituent in Utah.
Sure. Let's talk more about Bears Ears. It sounded like a lot of tribal nations were not happy with the reaction to expanding the boundaries for that. Can you tell us in a little bit more depth about their reaction to Bears Ears?
Yeah, I was in my reporting with this story, I did poll like probably 4 of the 8 tribes to evaluate the performance of Governor Spencer Cox. And one of them was Navajo Nation President Jonathan Nez. He did indicate that he did enjoy the relationship with the governor over the last probably 5 years, because he was lieutenant governor under former Governor Gary Herbert in Utah. And so the Navajo Nation had already established this like relationship, at least primarily Nez did. And so like it was easier to coordinate with different responses with COVID. But when it came to Bears Ears, that was obviously Indigenous led. And the Navajo Nation was one of their the tribes that was suing the Trump administration for restoration when it was shrunk under that administration. And so to hear or to see like the state of Utah being unfriendly to public land conversations when it comes to tribes was something that was alarming for the Navajo Nation president. And the Northwest Band of Shoshone did, even though they aren't part of northern Utah, they did support their ally tribes in the state in the conversation with this. And so the 2 leaders from those 2 tribes were definitely outspoken about the governor's rating in Utah and how it navigates or coordinates the state government relationship with tribes.
One of the other topics that the Navajo Nation president was very vocal about was redistricting.
Yes. So like redistricting, like the state, of course, because of like the census, and Utah was a little bit polarizing in the news cycles about their redistricting. But the redistricting that the reporting highlights is specific to San Juan County, Utah. And so there's years of racial gerrymandering that occurred. And so, of course, that resulted in the court mandated redistricting of the county to better represent the voice in an equitable and fair manner. And so in Utah, I've learned in my reporting, I'm from New Mexico originally. And so I see like how the county is the power. And so I guess that's where Utahns value themselves as far as like local control, local governance. And so they don't like that state interference with the county elect. And that's where the pushback is, like the Navajo Nation President Jonathan Nez wants the governor to use his influence to kind of coordinate. So there's a little bit of influx there, or different influences happening in San Juan County.
Sure. Well, Alastair, thank you so much for your reporting and for being here.
Thank you again to Indian Country Today for the new newscast, and I'm pleasure to be here. Hagonat.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. Thank you for watching. For all the latest news, go to IndianCountryToday.com. I am Aaliyah Chavez.
Sometimes you got to take a stand just because you know you can. Oh, you got to run, you got to run.